guys, it's CJ, and we are back to talk about an explosive episode of Real Housewives of Potomac. And today we'll be talking about season 5, episode 9, and I believe they called this episode The Tipping Point. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this episode actually shocked me because we do actually see the fight. I thought they were just going to give us a little piece of some hair pulling and the black screen, kind of where we left off last week, but they did not. They actually showed the entire altercation. And we see, basically, it's just a bunch of hair pulling, a bunch of glass breaking, and a lot of screaming and yelling, shaking. I mean, it was just a mess in this public establishment. Well, there was just, Ashley, she basically missed the whole thing, and she comes out and she's like, what in the world happened? And at this point, they have whisked Monique to a back room and they have taken Candace outside. Candace had to adjust her wig because her wig was pulled because Monique had a good grip on it during this altercation. And everybody is trying to, get their wits about themselves to figure out what happened. And Karen goes off to check on Monique because everybody is kind of, hanging out, trying to see if Candace is okay, because Candace did take the brunt of the beating. So Karen, goes to check on Monique, and Monique's kind of, pacing around the stairwell back and forth, and she was yelling out things about she wanted to kill her. She was gonna kill her, and she's just pissed off at this point, and she doesn't realize that her lip is bleeding. So blood was coming from her lip at that time. And then we go over to Candace, who is out at the truck, and producers are talking to her, and she's trying to go back inside. And producers are like, no. And she was like yelling and calling Monique, a hood rat ass B and everything else. I mean, she was pissed off, and she didn't intend to fight, but her actions did lead to the fight between she and Monique. Both of their actions led to them. I'm not going to place the blame on one or the other, because Candace is not going to back down from a verbal altercation. And we know from seasons past that Monique is always ready and willing to actually physically fight if pushed to the limit, because she has tried to go at castmates in the past. But the group seems to be divided at this point. We see, Giselle and Robin on one side, and then we see Karen, Ashley, and Wendy talking to Monique on the other side. Robin is just completely against what happened. She thinks that it was Monique's fault, and Monique is at fault. And Giselle is not really saying one way or the other at this point, but Giselle, you could kind of tell that she and Robin are going to lead, they're going to kind of lean to the same side. And you have Monique, whose mouth is still bleeding, and she's in there, and she's just kind of, talking. And it was crazy because before they started talking, when Monique was in the back, when they took her away, she was like raging, like she was ready to get at Candace again. She snuck out around back, and she tried to come, like she was running like through the dark, and everybody saw her and was like, oh my God, is that Monique? And Monique was running for more. She wanted more. But by this time, they had already made Candace get inside of the truck, and they were going to take her home. So she's on the phone with Chris, and she's crying and upset, and she's telling him, this kind of, hood rat shit is not what I'm about. I do not like to portray, black women in this light, and I'm so against this. And she made me take the bait. That's what she's telling her husband, and he's trying to talk her down and calm her down. But we go back inside of the winery where everyone else is, and Monique, like I said, her mouth is bleeding, and the girls are kind of talking to her, trying to figure out exactly what went down. And Ashley's kind of going back and forth. She's kind of, she would be with one group and then she would go over to Robin and Giselle. And she's kind of trying to figure out what happened because she wasn't out there when everything went down. So then we go to the morning after the fight and we have Wendy. Wendy is getting ready for work. I guess she's getting ready to go to her commentary job. And, she's just kind of making a point to talk about how hard she fights as a Black woman to get us a seat at the table. And the reason that they don't want us to have a seat at the table is because of like actions that happened the night before at the winery between Candace and Monique. The fighting. They already think that us Black women are loud and ghetto and we fight, and she just feels like feeding into that stereotype just makes it even harder for us to get anywhere. And then we go over to Giselle, and Giselle is packing. She and the girls are getting ready to go to Atlanta because they are getting ready to relaunch the Arizona's restaurant that their dad, Jamal Bryant, gifted to them to kind of create, the generational wealth. And so she's getting ready and she's talking to Robin. And Robin then tells Giselle that she feels like Monique was completely at fault. This was Monique's fault. And Giselle just says what happened at the winery the night before was absolutely deplorable. But she doesn't have time for all that because now her focus is on her girls and they're going to check on their new business. So she couldn't be bothered with all of that at the moment. We go see Candace. Candace wakes up and she says that she has a forehead ache. Her forehead is hurting and she is still in shock about what went down the night before. Chris urges her to go to the hospital if she has a headache because she doesn't know if she sustained it like a real injury or not, but she's not gonna do it at this time at least. And so she is kind of recalling the incidents that she feels have led up to them actually getting into this altercation. So we go over to Karen. Karen and Ray are at the house and they're kind of chit-chatting and she is talking to him about what happened, and she feels like both people are at fault, even though she likes both of them and she is not gonna take a side about this because she does feel like the two of them collectively caused this fight to happen. And Ray wants the tea about Ashley and Michael's situation, and rightfully so, because we knew that when they were going through their tax problems, Michael tried to shade Ray, telling him, if he needs to make a loan or something, he would loan him some money or something. It was something shady of that nature. And I don't think Ray has forgotten about that. So Ray was like, yeah, so tell me about his boyfriend. What was this about him having a boyfriend and everything? And so Karen was like, well, I'm not going to get into that with you right now. We're not even about to talk about that. We're going to focus on me having the chef come over because it's Ray's birthday and she wanted to have a nice dinner prepared for the two of them and they kind of sit down and connect. But the chef does come by. They make like a Chilean sea bass or something, and basically they cook, they throw down, they eat. End of story. So now the girls have made it to Atlanta, Giselle and her daughters, and they're actually staying at a hotel. And I was kind of concerned about this because why are y'all staying at a hotel when your ex-husband, who is now your new boyfriend, has, I'm pretty sure, a very nice large house there in Atlanta and can accommodate you guys there? But her excuse was that he does not have any food and the hotel has room service. I mean, this Uber Eats, that could be room service. I mean, I just don't think that Jamal probably suggested that they stay at a hotel for whatever reason. I wouldn't be staying at a hotel, I know that, but she's staying there. And she mentions that her dad lives in Atlanta. He used to live in New Orleans, but when he and her mom divorced, he moved to Atlanta. So she said that they need to see him, and she also needs to tell him that she and Jamal are working things out. They're trying to reconcile and, get back together. And she's worried about that because she knows her daddy is not featuring Jamal at all, but she'll find out. And I guess she wants to tell him before the blogs do, but something tells me that Dad's pretty sharp. And Daddy probably already know, but it is what it is. So we go back to Monique. We see Monique. She's washing one of the daughter's hair, and she's talking to Chris. And Chris tells her that he is very disappointed in what happened between she and Monique. And he's very disappointed at the fact that whatever they were going through couldn't be talked out, but rather become physical. And Monique doesn't care because Chris brought up, this is not good for your image. And she's like, I don't care about an image. Monique is saying that she felt like Candace, had a mouthpiece on her. Candace talks too much, and she should have been popped in her mouth as a child because she doesn't know how to talk to people. And Monique grew up on the physical side. She didn't do a lot of talking. She was throwing hands. So their two ways of conflict resolution obviously didn't match because it ended up in a fight. But she just says that she's done with Candace. I was about to call her Monique, but she's done with Candace. And Chris, reiterates that, somebody could have really gotten hurt. There was glass, y'all are throwing glass, and somebody could have got cut. It could have been a lot worse than a little scratch on the lip. But Monique doesn't care because she feels like she was justified in what happened. And I take it from what they're saying, even though Monique was the one bleeding, that she did get the best of Candace. I guess because she was physically throwing hands. We saw fights. I saw wine in Monique's face, but that was, I guess, just Candace probably just threw the glass as a defense mechanism. But from what I gather, I guess Monique was whapping on Candace's head. I don't know, but I just think that was not the place for those actions, and they really did embarrass the both of themselves. But we're back in Atlanta. Giselle meets up with Dad. She and the girls meet him for breakfast. And while they're there, she tells him that, I'm sorry, y'all might hear my dog barking. I don't know why she's barking, but she's barking. But anyway, they go, and she tells him that Jamal bought the girls a restaurant. They are now a business owner, and he thinks that that's good because everybody should, have some form of entrepreneurship somewhere. And he's very happy that, they have the restaurant. And then she eases in, well, and, we were together for many years, and now we are kind of working things. We want to work things out. And the girls had excused themselves from the table before she broke the news because they didn't want to be around this awkward situation because they probably don't even agree with it themselves. But Dad tells her that if it makes her happy, then fine. Then, then he's okay with it. And she gets misty-eyed because she knows that her dad does not like Jamal. Her dad wouldn't even come to their wedding when they got married, which I think is crazy because long before then, that must have said something about Jamal's character, or that Jamal was cheating on Giselle long before they even got married. And Dad knew about it, and Dad didn't think that he was the one for her, so he didn't want to be a part of their nuptials. And so she was all misty-eyed and, emotional because her dad, in a sense, gave his blessing and told her that If that's what she wanted to do, then so be it. But she was happy about that. So then we go back to Ashley and Michael. They're sitting in the penthouse with baby Dean. They're getting ready. Or she's playing with baby Dean. And she said exactly what I said last week in last week's recap. Ashley did exactly what she meant to do. She came in, she took the heat off of herself by deflecting and, switching the story over to Monique and Candace so that the heat would be off of her. And it worked because they got into a whole ass fist fight because of it. And she was nowhere to be found, and then came back after all the smoke had cleared or the dust had settled. So what? But Michael basically, tells her that he did what he did because she wasn't giving him any sex. And he knows it was wrong, but he was needing some intimacy. Ashley then tells him that she thinks that they should get a postnuptial agreement, meaning that if by chance they divorce for whatever reason, that there are terms or financial terms that Michael had to abide by to make sure that she and baby Dean are taken care of. And this is just another, because they reworked the prenuptial agreement a couple seasons ago, where now she gets more money if they make it to a certain amount of time in the marriage. It was something like that. Drop down in the comments and let me know how it went, if anybody remembers. But now Ashley has suggested that after the marriage, if there is an after the marriage, that he has to pay some more money or something. But Ashley is very calculated, and Ashley is very smart. She is smarter than what we tend to give her credit for, because Michael, it seemed like he agreed to it. Did it sound like that to y'all? But I thought he agreed to it. And she just basically, that's not going to draw anything. It's not going to be long and drawn out. When we divorce, okay, we already know what I'm going to get, so I'm out once it's time to go. But then we go back over to Karen. Karen is still trying to get the connection back with Ray. So she calls over a friend from a radio station. She's a radio host or something. She's like a relationship specialist. She calls her over to kind of meet with her and Ray, and they want to talk about their issues and hopefully work some things out. So they talk about love languages, and I guess the lady is trying to identify their love languages. I don't really know what came of that, because I don't think that they discovered or talked about it. But Ray basically says that they're not as intimate as they used to be. That Karen, I guess, is not putting out like she used to before she got so engulfed in LaDom and got so busy. She doesn't really have time for him. She doesn't cook. He pretty much just feels like she has put him on the back burner now that she has all of these endeavors, and he is at the point where he was ready to retire and just chill, and Karen has stepped on the gas. But Karen just says that Ray doesn't date her anymore. She doesn't really feel desired by him anymore. After 20 years, it just feels like they're just going through the motions. And the lady asks Karen if she is still in love with Ray after all this time. And she says absolutely, she couldn't imagine a day without Ray. They ask Ray the same thing, and Ray is not sure. Ray says, I think I'm in love with her. And that really upsets Karen, because Karen feels like he should know whether or not he is in love with her after all this time. And he brings up a point of she's not the same person that she was 20 years ago. She's different now, and he doesn't really know how he feels about the new Karen. He loved the old Karen's dirty draws, but the lady that she has evolved into, he does not really know whether or not he is madly in love with her. So Karen, visibly hurt. She goes upstairs and she wants to unmic, and she cries. And that was hard to watch because I feel like that was real. I thought Karen might have been exaggerating a little bit, but Ray is old, and Ray does not seem like a mushy, lovey-dovey kind of person. And it really seems like Karen wants more from him. And Ray is just at the point where he just doesn't really seem to be willing to give. But they're old. Hopefully they'll work it out. So now we are at the grand opening of the restaurant. And the family is out. Jamal, Giselle's dad, the children, they're all out front. And they thank everybody for showing up because there's a lot of people out there for this relaunch. And they're excited. And the food looked really good, by the way, when I saw. They thanked everybody for coming out. And the girls are really getting into it. They're assuming roles. They're waiting tables. They're hostessing. They're in the kitchen. They want them to know everything that it takes to successfully run a restaurant. So they are making them get their hands dirty, so to speak. And they're getting into it to see how the restaurant business works. And so they take a break. They're sitting at the table. Jamal, Giselle's dad, and the girls. They're having dessert or something. And Jamal brings up something about the future or something. And the dad, you could tell he was trying to hold his tongue, but he had a slip of the tongue a little bit. And he was like, well, yeah, we'll see, because he doesn't really have much faith that Jamal will do right or Jamal will stick around. But dad excuses himself to go to the restroom. And he uses that as an excuse, but he really just wanted to get away from that table. Daddy was tired of being fake, and he wanted to express his true feelings. He said, look, I'm against this. Giselle is making a mistake. Why would she want to be with this man? And he's got like 6 or 7 baby mamas. This is ridiculous. I don't really understand why she's trying to do this. But the producers, I forgot to mention earlier, they asked Giselle, how many children does Jamal have? And Giselle was visibly offended by that question. And she goes, well, I'm not going to speak on any children that I didn't birth with Jamal. And she says it, she says it's out of respect for the children and their mothers. And basically end the discussion, next question. But I don't think that Giselle will ever be thrilled with the fact that a lot of those children that were born or birthed came, at the hand of the affair or the cheating that he did on her. So obviously that's a sore subject and she may not want to speak about it. But you're back with him, so the question will probably come up in just about any interview that you do from here on out. But Daddy was over it. Daddy was tired of faking the funk. He was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I cannot do this anymore. I'm clean. He was done. Like, Daddy was done. And that's pretty much where the episode ended. So I tried to cover every base that I could. The fight was pretty much the big deal of the episode, of course. But if I forgot anything, y'all leave it down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I'm open to hear what y'all have to say about the episode. I do interact. I don't get a ton of comments just yet, but I do interact with the ones that I do because I do like to hear everybody's point of view. And like I said, let's try and keep it respectful. I'm always open for any kind of suggestions. I'm just open for them. I appreciate everybody that watches my videos, and please don't forget to like it, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.